For Honor is a third-person action-oriented game with a huge multiplayer premise. There are 12 different heroes you can choose from, each belonging to their own faction as well. You have the Vikings, the Samurai, and the Knights. Before I start talking about the gameplay or the multiplayer aspect of the game, let's go to the story first. Because it's not easy making Vikings, Knights, and Samurai fight each other in a story, let alone in a whole game. So, the story goes like this. A cataclysm happened, Vikings, Samurai, and Knights all ended up in the same place. The Vikings lost the most because the Knights and the Samurai actually turned out to have landed in Valkenheim, which is the homeland of the Vikings. So they're not pretty pleased with them. I want to point out this is the whole premise of the story. Vikings, Knights, and Samurai all fighting for supremacy because natural resources are hard to come by thanks to a cataclysm. Then there's a point where they start trusting each other. They're about to trust each other. Literally about to trust each other right there. And then some bitch called Apollyon comes through and is like, no, we must have war. Because we need to find out who are the wolves and who are the sheep. And it's like, what? Anyway, that's enough about backstory. Let's go with what the story actually is now. The story is divided in 3 different campaigns. You have the Knights, the Vikings, and the Samurai. The Knights campaign is more focused on a warden who is trying to find a place to belong in order to follow. The Viking story is focused heavily on uniting all the clans to perform what they call the Great Raid. And the Samurai story is all about redeeming yourself because you were imprisoned by the previous emperor. Also, there's a new emperor being chosen through basically bloodshed. The story is starting to sound more like a reality TV show. One guy must find a place to belong, the other one must throw the greatest party in the world, and the last guy, he must prove himself worthy to join both of them, or whatever. Honestly, especially you just completely ignore the story. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to begin with, doesn't make any sense to the end, and the fucking conclusion, they ruined it. They had a chance to redeem themselves with a conclusion, and they ruined it because Apollyon, after you beat her, starts talking about like how you can't stop war. War is always going to be happening no matter what you do. Peace is just a dream. It will never be accomplished. I like that. And then she ruined it by saying, this is what they are. The wolves. Just had to ruin it, didn't she? Anyway, that's enough about the story. Let's talk about the rest of the game, such as the multiplayer. The multiplayer is the base core of the game. This is what the game was designed around. The story was just an added bit because they needed a reason for those 3 factions to attack each other, but let's ignore the story again. For Honor has 5 different game modes. You have Duel, which is a 1v1, Brawl, which is a 2v2, Dominion, which is the current game mode that everyone seems to be playing, which is 4v4, capture the points, eliminate everyone from the opposite team, Elimination, which starts off as a 1v1, turning into a 4v1 if it snowballs against your team, and Skirmish, which is a mixture between Dominion and Elimination. If you recall, at the start of the review, I mentioned there are 12 playable characters you can choose from, each belonging to their own class: Vanguard, Heavy, Assassin, and Hybrid. Before you start playing the multiplayer, the game makes you choose a faction. This faction is who you will be representing in the faction wars. As for me, I chose the Vikings. Thankfully though, choosing a faction does not limit on who you get to play as in the multiplayer. If you chose Vikings like I did, you can play the Kensei, which is a samurai character. But let's go back a bit. What is the faction war? Every 2 weeks, one round is finished. Whoever has the most war assets by the end gets a reward. I actually have no idea what this reward is because A, I wasn't in the beta, and B, at the time of this recording, it's still going on. Now, the game does, and I'm sorry to say this, a microtransaction system. However, it doesn't affect the game that much, as what you can pay for with real money is steel, an in-game currency that you can already get from completing a multiplayer game. Steel lets you buy salvage crates, outfits, champion status, which just gives you bonus XP after every round, and helps you upgrade current gear or change the way it looks. You might start to think, oh great, now you get to pay money in order to upgrade gear. Great, I'm going to be way behind everyone else now. That's not true, because gear only matters in modes such as Dominion, and even then, it's still a little bit iffy on if it actually matters or not, because there are times when my axe, as the raider, is supposed to do twice as much damage. It feels like it's not doing any damage at all half the time. So all in all, gear doesn't matter one bit, because the only modes where gear does matter are things like Dominion, and if you're looking for a test of skill against another player, you either do Duel or Brawl, not Dominion, because in Dominion, or even Elimination matches, you can be ganged up by people out of nowhere and die even though you were clearly winning a 1v1 fight against someone else. Even though I said it's an action-oriented game, I haven't talked about the action yet. It feels amazing. The character movement all the way to the feeling you get after performing an execution on someone, everything has weight to it. And it's not a game you mash buttons and hope for the best, you beat someone else, because of two factors. One, you have a stamina meter underneath your health pool, so you can't really use too many attacks, otherwise you just deplete it. And two, the guard mode. Guard mode allows you to position your weapon to block or parry an attack, or attack from that direction. But if you don't think you can block an attack, you can always sidestep, or step backwards, or roll backwards, and get out of combat and run the fuck away. But please don't be that guy who runs away, because everyone hates that guy. They drag out the game, even when they know they've lost. So then, as for my conclusion of For Honor, it's a lot of fun. The story was very weak. Frankly, I don't think there's any reason to be playing the story unless you want to get that extra bit of steel and possibly ornaments from completing the game. I completed it on Realistic, so I unlocked every ornament that was available through the story mode. But Realistic has its own issues, which if you dare try it, have fun with people who can take many hits and you just die in like 3. But if you just want to play it with your friends or play by yourself online, that's perfectly fine. The game does have a few issues when it comes to the multiplayer though. It is peer-to-peer. Thankfully the microphones, they are automatically on push to talk, so yay. And honestly that's about it. I only experienced connection issues because of the peer-to-peer system. Other than that, it was very well polished and everything.